So I'm going to say my favorite case of the moment is about the Fairphone 3. So it's the case study Fairphone 3, Commercializing Radical Sustainability. And this case is one of a series of cases that I'm developing that address radical corporate sustainability. The premise for which is that business as usual isn't going to cut it. We need business to make much more radical change when it comes to sustainability. Sustainability that really moves the dial. So Fairphone 3 is about the organization Fairphone. So in terms of the history of Fairphone, this was actually a campaigning organization at the outset, founded in 2010, and it was really about conflict minerals, so particularly tantalum, which is a key ingredient within mobile phones, and the fact that it was being produced or mined in the war-ravaged Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. And so what Fairphone was campaigning on was Fairphone was on phones not using these conflict minerals. But then it broadened out into looking at sustainability far more generally. There are a lot of sustainability issues around phones. They're one of the most unsustainable products out there, even though they are so ubiquitous. And the genesis then of Fairphone was in looking at making a phone that was potentially more sustainable as a way of demonstrating to the industry that it was possible to do that. And not just around conflict minerals, but around other elements in the supply chain, other materials, labor conditions in the supply chain, and indeed the longevity of the phone. So how long the phone actually lasts. Instead of the phone being thrown away every 2 or 3 years, the idea for a Fairphone was it would last at least 5 years. And along the way, this campaigning organization came to the realization that if it really wanted to make a difference on sustainability, it should demonstrate that it's possible to make a more sustainable phone. And it introduced the Fairphone 1 in 2014, the Fairphone 2 in 2016, and this case is around the make or break introduction of the Fairphone 3 in 2019. So that's the organization, the product. In terms of teaching the case, the key question to ask in the start is what is success at Fairphone? And so I asked the class, up to the launch of the 2019, has Fairphone been successful? And you'll get people saying, well, not really. It's only sold, phones in the tens of thousands of units. And then others will say, but actually, it's not sales volume that really counts here. It's whether it's demonstrating to the industry that it's possible to make a phone that is more sustainable, and whether those other industry big players are emulating Fairphone. So having looked at what the purpose of Fairphone is, so this is really a purpose-driven organization, the conversation can switch to the Fairphone 3, and I spent some time with the class looking at how sustainable the Fairphone 3 actually is. And there's data in the case that enable you to get into some of the metrics, and I invite the class to come up with other metrics for establishing the sustainability of the phone. And of course, a key metric is, well, what's its longevity going to be? How long are people going to keep using the phone before it's replaced? And then the question, the more sort of commercial question of, will it succeed in the marketplace? And one of the challenges with the Fairphone 3 is to go from a market segment that might be described as the dark greens, the people who are, really living their lives on sustainability principles to the point of making various sacrifices, and to reaching with the Fairphone 3 the light greens who are people who, want to have a more sustainable phone, but maybe aren't willing to make so many sacrifices. And so that's sort of the discussion around the Fairphone 3. There's some great material in the case to look at some of the marketing aspects of that, who to target, and then in the final part, well, what next? So the protagonist here is Eva Govins, the CEO of Fairphone, and we look at, well, what should she be doing next? I then share what Fairphone have done next, which is the Fairphone 4, the Fairphone 5. It's now 10 years that this organization has been marketing sustainable phones. Sales are predicted for this year to be over 200,000. Not a huge number in this market. So more important is to look to what extent it's changing the industry. And so when I conclude with the case, I make a number of points, but I think probably the most important one is to see how within this organization sustainability is fully integrated into what it does. And you can see that, you can unpack that, and see that in the KPIs, the metrics, what it does in response to them, especially. I think secondly, you can see the way in which a campaigning organization transitioned into being more commercially oriented, and what that involved, including a massive turnover in the staff, by the way. So there's some really interesting sort of organizational messages there about having the right sort of people who are committed to the values of the organization, but at the same time also see the need to be commercially oriented. And then thirdly, and probably most importantly, we've got this illustration of radical corporate sustainability with an organization that's really trying to make a difference, to create systemic change within the industry, and looking to document that relative to what some of the big players are doing, such as your Apple and Samsung.